Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, unethical, detective mode. You've given every video game in Gotham a feature that nobody likes, essentially making every game easier for no apparent reason.
But this way, we don't have to work as hard on video games. Instead of making every level good, we can just add filler detective mode segments.
This is wrong.
We can't make every video game fun, Lucius.
Well, why the hell not?
Because we can only put so many man-hours into a single game before we have to start development on the sequel. It's easier to make boring detective mode segments than take the time to make interesting level design.
This is too much power for one person.
That's why I'm giving it to you. Now, that'll be $60, please. Plus the deluxe edition is $120.
Wait, fuck that. I'm just gonna go play Dark Souls.
Alright, today I want to talk about listening mode, or detective mode, or finding DB Cooper mode. Whatever you want to call it, you know what it is, you know how it works. You see through walls, things light up, glow, green, red, yellow, whatever it is. It's got a heartbeat. It can help you find enemies. It can help you find loot. It can give you X-ray vision, reveals destructible environments and such. Sometimes it outlines exactly the part of a wall that will be destroyed if you place a bomb or some kind of bat spray on it. And most importantly, it can highlight items of interest that you need to complete the mission. Whether it be sacks, packs, or racks, it'll point you in the right direction. Today I want to talk about how necessary is detective mode. Do we really need it? Why is it implemented on almost every title we see? Well, we're going to answer that question today, and I want to try to find the games that not just are necessary, but the ones that really are completely out of place for the mechanic. When it comes to The Last of Us, I can't help but put this in the unnecessary bin of detective mode games, let's just say. It's a wasteland of a game. It falls in line with your Fallouts and This War of Mines. When it comes to these wasteland post-apocalyptic settings, I feel as though the detective mode feature sort of diminishes the tension and the anticipation of what lies behind the walls of these creepy, cavernous areas, especially when you mix horror into the wasteland genre, because not every wasteland game has to incorporate horror. But if you're going to have a horror-esque game, which Last of Us has many elements of that, you don't want to ruin the unsettling tone that this game carries. And I feel as though I've been able to enjoy the experience of this game better as I do the higher difficulties, especially grounded mode. I feel like the experience of this game is best enjoyed on grounded. Grounded takes away and strips back all the detective mode elements. I tend to enjoy the experience in a more realistic setting this way. Now, to parallel some of the more unnecessary elements that Last of Us had with the listening mode, I don't want to make it seem like all games do this in a hand-holdy way. I think the best example of detective mode would be in a game like Dishonored. See, with Dishonored, detective mode isn't necessarily just a button you press to engage a endless ability whenever you want, however you want. It's actually a power that you engage, which in turn uses energy that you have to conserve over the course of the game. You get the energy in valves, a lot like BioShock. With Eve, the energy source is limited. It's best to use detective mode in this game very sparingly. And not just that, but in most games where you see detective mode, you can see miles away every enemy that's about to come your path. But in Dishonored, they only come into recognition of the detective mode maybe 5-10 feet away. And so it still adds the challenge of what's to come on the other side of that wall. You can only really see in a short proximity of your player character. Now, when I was talking about Dishonored and referring to games that tend to give you a little bit too much depth of field with your detective mode, I was more or less referring to Horizon Zero Dawn. There are straight up segments of this game where there might be 20 to 30 enemies on a single base at a given time, but that base varies in size. The challenge, I feel like, is taken away as soon as not only can I see the enemies from a mile down the road, but also it gives me the ability to tag every single enemy. And so I don't even have to have detective mode engaged the entire time. All I have to do is tag the enemies and then go on my merry way. So now I know where every single enemy is at any given time. Where's the challenge in that? I can't help but feel like it strips away the entire point of a stealth system. You might as well not be stealthy if you know where every single enemy is at any given point. I can just snipe the entire base with my arrows from a safe distance. It almost gives you the ability to either have close encounter combat or just pull out the bow and arrow and find a ridge somewhere, find a mountain range, pick them off as they come by. There's just no challenge in that. There's no excitement. I know exactly what's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna jump out at me. I'm from a perfectly safe distance. And sometimes you have to take away certain luxuries and certain privileges to force you to be more crafty. Make do with what you got. Now, of course, we couldn't make this video without talking about the Godfather of detective mode. The ultimate detective himself. Wait for it. The ultimate detective himself, Batman. The Batman Arkham series introduced us to the detective mode. There really was nothing quite like it before these games came out. More specifically, Arkham Asylum in 2009. It had a style to it that was unlike anything else. It was part camera mode, but also it would highlight, well, I said it in the beginning of the video. It does everything we know detective mode to do. It set the standard for what detective mode was, and it makes sense. Batman has always been known to be an incredible detective. And so for him to have a gadget to give him these abilities, it's fitting. When it comes to the Spider-Man games, though, yes, I get it. Spidey senses is a thing, but the way that I always interpreted Spidey senses was his ability to make split-second decisions as they would happen. You know, catching a bunch of food on a lunch tray, or being able to dodge certain throwable explosives at a moment's notice. I always interpreted it as heightened senses, if anything, but no amount of heightened senses is gonna make you see through walls. It's not X-ray vision. That's just not Spider-Man to me. Superman, on the other hand, I mean, he's very well known for that. If we were to have a Superman game, detective mode would be perfect for a character like him, but I never felt it was so fitting for a character like Spider-Man to have it.
My spider senses are starting to tingle.
Obviously, the Batman games were the first to do it. They set the standard. I'd say they get a pass from the criticisms that I have for detective mode, generally speaking. Now, you might be wondering, what could you have in place for a detective mode? If you were to snap your fingers and make every game with a detective mode strip of that. That's a weird way to put it. If you were to take out the detective mode for every game, put something else in its place, what would that be? Well, I feel that there are better alternatives. You have binocular tagging, you have radar, you have clever clues that you could leave for the player. Something like Far Cry utilizes the binoculars in a very unique way, and it was one of the first games to implement tagging. That was really the only hand-holding you got in that game. Every other possible challenge, especially in the first one, was really heightened to its maximum capacity. This is barely a game that does hand-holding. I mean, I dare not put it anywhere in the same category. Radar is also something that can be helpful in terms of tracking down an enemy. A game like Alien Isolation is a perfect example of this. You're constantly using your radar to make sure that that fucking alien doesn't yeet your ass out of the game. It's hunting you down 24/7 throughout each level. And it's not just a radar that is part of your HUD, it's something you literally have to equip. It really adds another challenge to locating your enemy, especially when your enemy is constantly trying to hunt you down. Most of the time in detective mode-esque level design, you'll have a stealth segment, and you're the one that's hunting. You're the one that's tracking down the unsuspecting guards. But in something like Isolation, you're absolutely the prey. There's no doubt about it. Radar is quite the luxury in a game like that. I shouldn't even say a luxury. It is essential to getting through that horror show. Now, can you imagine if you were to simplify the mechanics of something like Alien Isolation and put in listening mode? It would completely deflate all of the tension that you get from that experience. It would, well, frankly, it would ruin the game. Alien Isolation cannot work with a mechanic such as detective mode. Sometimes it was fun to have hidden areas in games. Games such as Doom or Zelda. I feel like it's a lot harder to implement hidden areas and sprinkled in Easter eggs when you have a mechanic that shows the entirety of the map right in front of you. I feel as though when Arkham Asylum came out, it was during an age of hand-holding. You had arrow bars pointing you in every which way. And then games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne came around and gave you freedom all of a sudden. Thank you. I remember sitting down and playing Dark Souls 2 for the first time and just being confused.
That's fun. Why do they make that? If you can't even win, then why am I fucking playing?
I was so used to a hand-holding system that told me where to go, where to look, that just being released into the wild and forced to pave my own way. It was something that I honestly didn't like at first. Something that I had to learn to love. And now, it's a lot more commonplace. We're seeing it in a lot more games. I mean, something like Breath of the Wild just throws you out there, lets you roam and create your own path. What I would rather happen is to make detective mode a feature that you can turn off and on if things feel too difficult for you. A great example of this would be like Metal Gear 5, how if you died enough times, it would straight up just ask you, hey man, you want the fucking chicken hat? We'll give you the chicken hat if you want the chicken hat, but do you want it? It's a little demeaning. If they just made it a mode, an actual mode, not detective mode in the sense that you can engage it within a click of a button, but more of a easy, medium, detective mode medium. Just have an in-between. Have it be an option. But honestly, all this detective talk, it's gotten me in the mood for a real detective adventure. So I'm gonna watch Pink Panther. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Dude, what if Michael just looked like Cousin It like this?